When it comes to arcadey third-person dogfighting type games, that type of game has never been my particular cup of tea. Aside from, of course, me growing up with the multiplayer Star Fox games on N64 and the GameCube. But Chorus caught my eye immediately when I was taking a look at upcoming game releases a while back, and after requesting a press key, which I was shortly thereafter granted, I was able to spend a few hours taking a look at it. This isn't a review, not properly, as I haven't had time to finish the full game yet, so consider this a first impressions video, if you will. Chorus is a third-person sci-fi action game with an exclusive focus on vehicle-based combat. To the best of my knowledge based on my experience so far playing it, there is no traditional third-person combat in the sense that you don't get out of your ship and start blasting ground enemies yourself. Both you and the enemies you'll be gunning down, or conversely if you're a terrible shot, the enemies I'll be gunning you down, will all do so in the vacuum of space. And honestly, I don't really have a problem with that. However, as I've said God knows how many times in other recent review videos, if you're going to strip down your game to focus on a more limited number of mechanics, you better go out of your way to make sure those mechanics look or feel way better than those in other games, to offset that more narrow focus. And Chorus in some ways absolutely fulfills those raised expectations, but in other areas definitely falls short. But first, let's do a quick rundown of the story via the game's Steam store page. Take control of Nara, once the Circle's deadliest warrior, now their most wanted fugitive. On a quest to destroy the dark cult that created her, unlock devastating weapons and mind-bending abilities in a true evolution of the space combat shooter, along with Forsaken, her sentient starfighter. Explore ancient temples, engage in exhilarating zero-G combat, and venture beyond our waking reality. Their quest for redemption will take them across the galaxy and beyond the boundaries of reality as they fight to reunite forces against the Circle and their leader, the Great Prophet, at all costs. Enter a dark new universe, teeming with mystery and rife with conflict. Explore epic locations such as sprawling space stations and strange planes of existence far beyond our own. Engage in exhilarating— I feel like it already said exhilarating earlier, but whatever, they're being very exuberant with this description. Zero-G dogfights from epic cosmic vistas to tight crystalline corridors. Chorus balances the scale and spectacle of space exploration with frantic, fast-paced action. Okay, I'm just going to quickly start off here by dispelling that last bit. I definitely don't feel it would be fair to say, or honest to say, that the action here is fast-paced. There are certainly some environmental puzzles that are time-sensitive and require fast-paced action in order to successfully complete them, but the scripted action sequences certainly don't necessarily feel all that fast-paced. While you can hold down the shift bar in order to zoom around at faster speed, you won't really be using your thrusters to accelerate in actual combat unless you're doing so momentarily to get yourself out of a pinch. Because sometimes you do find yourself in your enemy's line of sight if they happen to be on your tail, such as during a high-speed 360-degree loop, in order to get behind them to place them within your line of sight instead. Alternatively, the only other occasion where I felt any need or desire to accelerate for more than a quick moment is when I finished one mission and have to fly a long distance to the next one. The problem is here, however, the acceleration is essentially so limited, so ironically slow, that it can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes getting from A to B in what's essentially a straight line. Some people might find this enjoyable, all part of that immersive experience, yada yada. For me, I prefer not being forced to fly in the slow lane all the time. I would have preferred if they went either the Star Wars route with short bursts of hyperspeed or something, or if there was one additional default higher speed beyond this slow-ass shift-key sprint option. The combat is fairly solid. By default, Chorus features lock-on aim assist, but you can easily disable this in the game's options menu if you choose to. Personally, I left it on as I found even with the advantage of the lock-on aim, it was still slightly challenging to line up my shots correctly, and with most enemies beyond the very first few encounters, most enemies will have shields on top of their normal health bar, so it's not as simple as just landing a single shot or two before being rewarded with the sight of that satisfying explosion. You do quickly unlock access to a laser weapon that can quickly knock out an enemy's shields with merely 2 shots, but the trade-off is that said laser does basically nothing to the actual enemy health bar, so you have to know when to swap off between weapons and quickly too, because while an enemy ship's health may not regenerate over time, their shields will. So you'll have a pretty narrow window of time in order to finish them off before you're forced to repeat the process above. Certainly the most impressive component of this game is its skyboxes, the backdrops for the mostly open world you get to fly around in. And to the game's credit, even when you run it on a mix of high and ultra visual settings, the overall optimization and performance is incredible. It seems like more and more these days, Most developers and publishers, especially in the AA or AAA categories, completely disregard stuff like compressing their game files in order to reduce file size, or ensuring in-game assets aren't unnecessarily and excessively taking up too much of the player's CPU and GPU. The Chorus developers did a very good job of both. The cutscenes likewise are very impressive. You can definitely tell they storyboarded out the cutscenes in advance before they went ahead and animated it, based on the way each shot is framed. The only downside, and it is extremely noticeable, given how good everything else looks by comparison, is the facial animation and lip sync. The rest of the cutscenes look more or less like what you'd expect from any PC or PS4 game, but the face and character models themselves look like something you'd expect of a last generation game. And I think one thing that definitely negatively contributes to this is the hopelessly generic sci-fi vibe of the design. The full body outfit has the same stock outfit you'd see on pretty much any traditional vanilla sci-fi protagonist. The story is probably where the game suffers the most, however. The overall premise could have very well been interesting if the developers allowed it more than a surface-level amount of depth. You have a character that, spoilers, literally blew up a fucking planet and is clearly suffering from some kind of insane, barely repressed traumatic PTSD, and is questioning their own morality and leadership potential, while circumstances around them demand they rise up and take up the mantle of leadership and be the hero those under them need them to be, even if said person doesn't feel heroic themselves. It's a well-established narrative cliche, and one that, if pulled off correctly, can be quite a rewarding character arc to see play out. But the problem is that while the voice acting here can be pretty solid, the way the story is presented, from the pacing to the dialogue, the exposition, all of it is very bloated and poorly connected. The game front-loads you with pretty much the entire backstory all at once at the start of the game. Then sporadically through later cutscenes as well as internal character monologues, mumbled so quietly by the character that the player can barely hear it, references completely unrelated details that were never previously hinted at or established, that it makes the process of stringing together a cohesive chain of events borderline impossible. Again, this could work in other instances if, for example, our protagonist had some kind of concussion or other traumatic brain injury, or suppressed memories because of their established emotional trauma. But the game, at least as far as I've played, gives me no reason to suspect any of these are the case. I enjoyed Chorus for the most part due to its fairly enjoyable shooting. If you're looking for just a campy, arcadey, third-person dogfighting game with some outstanding visuals and nothing more, then Chorus is probably the right game for you. But if you're hoping for something more than that, I fear you might be disappointed, as I was. I applaud the Chorus developers for what they were trying to do. I really don't like being in this position of effectively thumbing down a AA game with such obviously high production quality in so many respects, because I feel we need more games of that scale in this market. But at the end of the day, I have to make a recommendation one way or the other. And sorry, Chorus, but you just don't make the cut. And on that note, that's where I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. As ever, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to click the like button and comment below what you think of the game. Likewise, subscribing and clicking the bell really helps. I know it's cliche, but the YouTube algorithm, once again, is a pain in the ass to deal with, doubly so if you're a small channel like me. This is Warrior Dan signing out. Stay awesome, everybody, stay safe, and peace out.